What's up, you guys? I'm back again with another video, and after many requests by my stream as of late, I am releasing my first BFA 8 whatever, the first season of Battle for Azeroth, my first Mistweaver guide of Battle for Azeroth. I know many of you have been asking me to release this guide, and I'm excited to bring it all to you. Now, shameless plug here. Speaking about my stream, you guys can catch me live at twitch.tv. I'll put a link or some kind of thing on the screen here. I've been seeing a lot of new faces now with my new How to Get to 2K challenge series, and I'm excited to meet many more of you guys in the future. I enjoy talking to my viewers, and if you want to ask more questions, whether it be about Mistweavers or other classes, you can catch me at twitch.tv. I stream at night, I stream really early in the morning, so just hit my stream with a follow and you can ask your questions there. Now, just like all of my guides in the past, I'm going to go over our general talents, I'll go over our PvP talents, and then now for Battle for Azeroth, I will also cover our stat priority as well as our Azurite traits. Now, once again, this is a PvP guide. I will be making a PvE Mistweaver guide in the future, so be sure to check that out if you are interested in things like that. I have been doing Heroic Uldir, Mythic Uldir, Mythic Plus, things like that. So if you are interested in that type of content, I will be releasing it in the future. But let's take a moment to talk about races. Now, as you can see on the screen here, I am an Orc Mistweaver. Now, for me personally, I believe that the Orc racial for Horde is the best option for Mistweavers. There are some high mountain Tauren or Tauren Mistweavers, I should say, and that is a decent option. But for me, I believe hardiness, the Orc racial, is just the best racial on Horde. And this is because Mistweavers have lost Wave the Crane stun immunity. We've lost our ability to activate Healing Elixir when we fall below a certain HP point automatically. And getting caught in a stun is really the only way that you're going to die as a Mistweaver. So having that stun reduction, I believe, is very important. But if you do play Alliance, there are a lot of great races for Mistweaver. Human is still a great option, even though they increased the cooldown on your ability to use your human racial in combined with your Gladiator's Medallion. There's also Dwarf, which is really strong right now. Dwarf, Dark Iron Dwarf is being a great option. The fact that there's so many bleeding classes like Feral and obviously Assassination Rogues, you know, stripping that poison off or bleeds off of your character is going to be very important. And then even for fun, I might consider using Void Elves. Void Elves having that extra mobility is not a bad option, but overall, I still believe that the Orc racial is the best. For Mistweavers, however, if you are not playing any of those races and you're like, oh, I'm a troll Mistweaver, save your money, it's okay. Depending on what your goals are, your race isn't too important, but if you are creating a new character or you are just wondering which race is going to be the best, those are my suggestions. Now, hopping right into our general talents for this video, we're going to start with the level 15 row. And still, like in Legion, even though there has been some changes to Mist Wrap is still going to be your best option. Enveloping Mist is very powerful in Battle for Azeroth, especially if you are stacking Overflowing Mist. Your Azurite Traits, so getting that extra healing bonus by 10% and increasing the duration, is going to be very nice for you, whereas the other options for PvP aren't as impressive. Now, for level 30, I still prefer Chi Torpedo. Fighting certain survival hunters, having Tiger's Lust might be nice if they're going to net you and then go for a trap, but you can still port those traps if you're paying attention. I still prefer Chi Torpedo for a lot of mobility, a lot of movement, getting in and out, and I feel like the role, you know, getting Tiger's Lust and having the role is just not a good fit for me as a player, and a lot of players seem to agree as well. Moving on to level 45, you have to go for Mana Tea here. It's still just as powerful as it was in Legion, and now in BFA. There's a nice combination of choices here with Mana Tea and other abilities that you can use when using Mana Tea to really reduce the mana cost of your overall just spell usage. I mean, Mistweavers go through mana really fast, and you have to be careful in how you organize your spells and how you activate certain abilities to make sure you don't go you know, within the first couple minutes. Now, mana is not been so much of an issue after we've seen some mana buffs for Mistweavers. Just the other day, we did get a 10% increase on our mana, what's the word I'm thinking of? Mana regeneration. They just buffed our mana regen as Mistweaver, so it's not completely awful, it's not amazing, but Mana Tea is going to help you out quite a bit, and I'll explain more on how you can use that later in the video. Now, for level 60, you have 3 options here. I absolutely hate Song of Chi-Ji. It's just too gimmicky, it's too slow. Sometimes you have to put yourself in a weird position to use it. Sometimes you have to use Zen Focus Tea just to get it off. If it moved a little bit faster, if the cast time was less, I would explore it more, but personally, I find so much utility out of Ring of Peace. Tiger Tail Sweep might be good if you really want more consistent stuns, or you have to stun more frequently for your team, but Ring of Peace is so useful in so many ways. You can use it to knock your enemy out of their earthen totem if they're playing with a resto shaman. You can use it to place on top of a smoke bomb. If, for example, your ally gets caught in a smoke bomb and a kidney shot, you can drop the Ring of Peace in there and they'll probably be just fine. Also for things like powered barrier. When a discipline priest uses their barrier or their dome, you can knock them out of that as well. You can knock people off of just various Z-axis maps like Blade's Edge Arena. You can use it in so many different ways, from blocking off rooms or trying to stop someone from trying to get away. If your allies are trying to chase down an enemy, you can put the ring right in front of them. Ring of Peace has so many great uses for it. It's an instant cast that costs no mana, so I prefer Ring of Peace for level 60, but you can mess around with these other options if you are curious. Now, going into level 75, we used to almost always use things like Healing Elixir. Healing Elixir was great. It cost no mana. It gave you 15% of your max health back. That was really useful and had 2 charges. But the problem with Healing Elixir is now, if you get locked out, you can't activate it. On top of that, now it does not automatically activate if you fall below a certain HP point. Now, I was experimenting with it for a while. It's still a great option if you prefer using Healing Elixir. I don't like it as much anymore, but there's nothing wrong with using it. A lot of players still use it, but for me, I almost always like Dampen Harm. It's a 2-minute cooldown, and you only really have one wall defensive cooldown as a Mistweaver called Fortifying Brew. Having Dampen Harm allows you to have almost 2 walls. Sometimes you can stack them if you're predicting a big go on you, maybe versus like an RMP, or if you want to go with Wave of the Crane, you can use your one of your walls maybe earlier in the fight if you feel like they're going to be swapping to you. And then you can also use your Dampen Harm when you are going in with Wave of the Crane. Diffuse Magic is also a good option versus like Shadow Priests or Affliction Warlocks and things like that if you feel like they're going to be dealing a lot of magic damage. But still, for me, I almost always like Dampen Harm, but there's no shame in exploring the other 2. Now for level 90, I just always like Summon Jade Serpent Statue. Chi-Ji the Red Crane, they reduce the duration that it's out for. The cooldown is 3 minutes. It does decent healing, I'm not gonna lie. It's also good, I feel, like versus like if you're doing 2v2s and you fight a rogue mage. This is a great cooldown to use if you expect yourself to be in a lot of CC and you want to get a little bit extra healing out there. Some players like using it versus Feral Druids to line up with Incarnation or even versus Boomkins, but for me, I still like using Summon Jade Serpent Statue. But once again, this is another row where you can try out both of them and see what you personally prefer. Now for level 100, I really like Focus Thunder for a lot of reasons. It's good for offensive ability with your Rising Sun Kick. There has been a lot of changes to Focus Thunder. Now it buffs your Enveloping Mist, allowing it to heal for an additional amount instantly. It increases the duration of your Renewing Mist, which you might be using maybe at the start of an engagement in PvE. There's also Vivify, which is the same as it was in Legion. It costs no mana. And then on top of that, we also have Rising Sun Kick, where it reduces the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick. And I'll explain to that when I get to Wave the Crane. But it has been changed, but a lot of the uses for it can save you a lot of mana. If you're using it for your Enveloping, using that and getting a bonus heal on your Enveloping in the long term is going to save you a bit of mana. Obviously, if you want to use your Vivify in Arena ever and you're running really low on mana, and having 2 charges of this is going to be crucial for preserving mana or getting out extra damage or for whatever you want to use it for. So personally for me, I like Focus Thunder, and the other 2 options for PvP are not really any good in my opinion. Now hopping into our PvP talents. Same thing as always, if you're new to the game, if you're just asking for a general opinion, almost always go with Gladiator's Medallion. Relentless, in my opinion, is just not really good for Mistweaver, especially now that it doesn't stack with your Orc Racial. And then Adaptation is good for certain comps if you are playing an Orc. Sometimes, let's say you're fighting a Hunter, for example, your Adaptation will almost always only proc versus a Hunter on their trap, right? So every 1 minute, you'll be able to get out of a trap. If they try and stun you, because you have hardiness as an Orc, it will not be a full 5-second duration stun, so it will not proc your Adaptation. This might take a little bit of experience to get used to. I still think Gladiator's Medallion all across the board is going to be your better option, but you can mess around with Adaptation versus Hunters. But once again, just go with Gladiator's Medallion. It teaches you a lot of fundamentals about the game. It teaches you when you should trinket, when you shouldn't trinket, and I think it's good for beginning, experienced, and returning players all around. Going into our first section, we have Surging Mist. Now, Surging Mist, in my opinion, is by far one of your strongest spells as a Mistweaver, and you are almost always going to take this talent option. It's just like we used to have a thing called FUs in Legion. If you're new to Mistweaver, and FUs was something that you would use to try and like, it was like your flash of light, right? If you played Holy Paladin, it's your flash heal. It's your instant single target heal. Well, we used to use FUs with Thunder Focus T and you would stack those up with enveloping, and you get some insane heals every time you would use your FUs. With an old talent called Fortune Turned, it would stack up and increase the healing by 50%, stacking up to 2 times and dealing quite a bit of single target healing for a low mana cost. Surging Mist is exactly that. It's FUs with the old talent baked into it. It heals a target for a certain amount, and then it stacks up to 2 times for 50% increased healing for 6 seconds, so it's a lot of extra healing on your Surging Mist. It's the best way to try and top off one of your allies and save a bit of mana, so you almost always want to go with Surging Mist. Now, another really cool thing about Surging Mist is you can see the GCD on this, especially if you have haste in your build as a Mistweaver, is so low. I mean, you can just spam out Surging Mist through Soothing Mist, whereas Enveloping has a really long GCD. You can see as I use my Enveloping Mist, it's like a 1.5 second GCD or a 1 second GCD depending on your haste and everything like that, whereas Surging Mist is just instant. I mean, it's so fast, you can just spam those out, and it's an easy way to recover your ally during moments of pressure. Now for our next bracket, this was a talent option that we did have in Legion, and in Legion it was in a row that we'd almost never take. It was in the row for Vim and Vigor and Defender of the Week. Now those are no longer options, we don't have to talk about those, but now that it's not in that bracket and we can choose any 3, Zen Focus Tea is a very, very powerful talent for beginners and experienced players all alike. It provides an immunity to silence and interrupt effects for 5 seconds on a 45-second cooldown. This is crucial for Mistweaver. We can no longer move while channeling Soothing Mist, and it's a lot easier, well, it's a lot more difficult, I should say, actually, to fake cast an enemy. It's a lot easier to get interrupted as a Mistweaver now. Before, you could probably like activate your Soothing Mist instantly, but now it's on a GCD, and then go into an enveloping and then stop cast right away, and you could honestly get a heal out and fake out your enemy for their interrupt almost always. It was such a fast combination of abilities that they had to be really staring at you and focusing on your cast bar to try and interrupt you. And sometimes as a Mistweaver, whether it be on yourself when you get out of a really bad situation, if you just survived a kidney shot, or if you got out of a trap or a fear or a poly and you cannot afford to fake cast, you need to get a heal out. Having Zen Focus Tea activated is so crucial as a Mistweaver. Once you activate this ability, you can't be interrupted, so you can freely cast out huge heals for 5 seconds, and that's going to be important for a Mistweaver, and a lot of players are almost always locking this in. Now for the final slot here in your PvP talents, you can mess around with this one a little bit more. There's a lot of great options here. For me, one of the ones that I'm always debating on are things like potentially Dome of Mist. If I feel like I'm fighting a very purge heavy team and I do not want my envelopings to get purged off, especially because of your Azurite trait, enveloping is a big part, just like it was in Legion, of your healing class. So it grants like a purge protection. When you purge off your enveloping, all healing that would have been received from that enveloping will turn into a shield, and it increases the monk's healing by 30%. So it's a very, very important tool to have as a Mistweaver when fighting purge heavy teams. You also have things like counteract magic if you're fighting like a Boomkin or a Shadow Priest or a dot heavy team. This is going to buff your renewing mist by 135%, and it's a good amount of extra healing, so you can also spec into that. One of the options that I typically always go with, I debate between Wave the Crane or Zen Focus Tea, Disarm. We now have a Disarm effect as a Mistweaver. It's on a 1-minute cooldown with a 30-yard range, and this is going to be great versus things like an Assassination Rogue. If they kidney shot your ally in the arena, you can disarm them and really negate their kidney shot. You can also use it versus things like Turbo if you feel like, you know what, they're just dealing so much damage that I need to mitigate some type of damage. You can also use it for yourself. You can also use it if like a rogue coming at you behind the pillar, you can disarm him, and even if he kicks you, you can disarm him and stop some of that damage output and try and preserve yourself or your allies' HP pool. So that's something to keep in mind. Grapple weapon is not a bad option. You can kind of go between any of those 3. Healing Sphere, it's really weird, and the GCD on it is really awful, so I don't really use that anymore. Fast Feet's not a bad option, but those are the main 3 for me, and this is just a general guide here. Grapple weapon, counteract magic, Dome of Mist, and then obviously Wave the Crane. Now Wave the Crane has been changed since Legion, and I want to dive into that. Now Wave the Crane is on a 1-minute cooldown, and it increases your physical damage by 35%, but in Legion it made us immune to stuns, snares, and root effects. Now it only makes us immune to snare and root effects. But when dealing damage, you're going to heal the nearest 3 allies for 200% of all the damage you are dealing. So it's going to buff your physical damage, but it's also going to heal them for all damage. So even your Crackling Jade Lightning is going to heal your allies. It lasts 15 seconds. Now, because it no longer breaks you out of stuns, this is going to be something that you have to keep in mind. You can't go in there if you're going to be on a stun, if you're on stun DR or you're not on stun DR and you haven't been polymorphed yet or feared. Sometimes you can get completely CC'd on your Wave the Crane. The reason why this is problematic is Wave the Crane now costs 25,000 mana, which is literally 20% of your mana pool. That is a lot. You will go extremely fast if you're using 1, Wave the Crane on cooldown, and 2, if you're not combining it with your Mana Tea. That's why we're picking Mana Tea if you are playing Wave the Crane, and almost always. I mean, Mana Tea is just better than the other options in my opinion, but if you activate your Mana Tea and then you activate Wave the Crane, it's going to half the cost of Wave the Crane, so it's only going to cost about 12,000. So you won't actually notice a big impact when popping Wave the Crane if you combine it with Mana Tea. But if you just flat out use your Wave the Crane, it's a big misplay. You're gonna go very, very fast. And Wave the Crane, depending on how you use it, isn't always gonna top your team like it did in Legion. So I'm gonna go through really quickly and how you can kind of prepare your Wave the Crane and how you can get the most use out of it. So when using Wave the Crane, it's a nice tool to use versus a lot of comps, right? Versus Shadow Priest, if they use their silence effect on you, you can still activate Wave the Crane. If, for example, you're fighting a Moonkin Druid who is notorious for having their root beam, they root you and then solar beam you right on top of you, you can actually still activate Mana Tea and Wave the Crane. And because Wave the Crane makes you immune to snare and root effects, you can just walk out of that root beam effect every 1 minute. So it's a very nice tool to have versus classes like that. It's good to have versus spread pressure comps, and it's also really good to provide extra pressure for your team. So you do not always have to play Wave the Crane. I think it's very important in matches like 2v2s. I think it's very important in matches that, let's say you're playing like a turbo comp, so that being enhanced warrior, and you need just a little bit of pressure. I prefer, after playing it a lot, Wave the Crane, and it also has some nice effects on it as well. But when using or playing as a Mistweaver and when using Wave the Crane, there are a lot of opportunities for you to use your Tiger Palm to stack up your Blackout Kick. And if you're unfamiliar as a Mistweaver, you have a passive called Teaching of the Monastery. Tiger Palm causes your next Blackout Kick to strike an additional time, stacking up to 3 times. Blackout Kick has a chance to reset the cooldown on your Rising Sun Kick. So as a Mistweaver, you are looking to try and stack up your Tiger Palm to make sure your next Blackout Kick is going to hit a lot more or deal additional damage or strike additional times to deal more damage on your Wave the Crane, which is innately going to increase the healing output of your Wave the Crane. Also, you have a nice little passive here that's new for Battle for Azeroth called Mystic Touch. Your damage weakens the target, increasing physical damage taken by 5%. So it's good for you and your allies. So as a Mistweaver, there's going to be things like pets, totems, just random people that are running past you. As they run past you, you're going to want to just hit them with a Tiger Palm and try and build up this buff of Teachings of the Monastery before you go in with your Wave the Crane. You can't always do this, but if you get comfortable using it, you're going to have opportunities to do this. A lot of times, like, there's moments that you can use it in really good Mistweavers. If you're watching something like Whoopi, he's always hitting totems, pets, things like that to keep this buff going. So all you have to do is get the buff to 3 stacks and then make sure it doesn't fall off throughout the match. And then when you go in for your Wave the Crane, you're going to simply activate your Mana Tea. It's a couple globals to set up, and not every scenario is going to work out like this, but this is the ideal scenario. You're going to have 3 stacks, activate your Mana Tea, activate your Thunder Focus Tea, and then activate your Wave the Crane. Once you do this, you're going to go into a triple Blackout Kick, into a Rising Sun Kick, and because I use my Thunder Focus Tea, Rising Sun Kick's gonna be off cooldown, into another Blackout Kick, into a Rising Sun Kick, into another Blackout Kick, into a Rising Sun Kick, and you're gonna be dealing a lot of damage and a lot of healing. This is great pressure. I mean, you can almost solo somebody as a Mistweaver. It's a lot of damage. If somebody's at like 30 to 40% health and your allies are attacking the same target, if you have that combo built up, you will like just one-shot them right there. So it's a lot of damage, and if you use it with Mana Tea, it won't cost a lot of mana, and it's a great way to top your team. Also, if you use things like Enveloping Mist on yourself or the person that's taking the brunt of the pressure, before you go in with Wave the Crane, that target will receive additional healing. So that's something to keep in mind. If someone's really low, it might be wise to get an Enveloping on them first and then do that combo to go in there with Wave the Crane. The last thing I want to note is Wave the Crane and Mana Tea do not line up perfectly, right? One's a 1.5 minute cooldown, one's a 1 minute cooldown. So keep that in mind. I really don't recommend using Wave the Crane without Mana Tea unless like you really need to win right there or you think you're going to win. But if you do not win during that time frame and you do not line these up, it's going to cost a lot of extra mana, so just keep that in mind. All right, now I want to hop into Azurite traits, and I get this question all the time. Now, as of the date of making this video, September 25th, Overflowing Mist for PvP is going to be your best Azurite trait. There are a bunch of other options regarding Mistweavers. I've seen that recently buffed Burst of Life. It like buffs your cocoon heal after it expires. I still believe Overflowing Mist, and a lot of people agree with this, is going to be your best Azurite trait. It simply makes your Enveloping Mist heal the target for 501 each time they take damage. So, for example, Enveloping Mist, if you put it on yourself, if I put Enveloping Mist on myself right now, you'll see that Enveloping Mist heals for 3,516 every 0.9 seconds. And then it increases the healing received by the monk by an additional 40%. On top of this, if you have Overflowing Mist and you can stack 3 of these on your character, it will heal the target right here for an additional 1,503 every time they take damage. This makes any target that has Enveloping on them significantly more tanky, much more durable. It's a great thing to use on yourself if you feel like you're about to get swapped onto. Enveloping already heals for a lot. You can also have Renewing Mist on yourself, and with Overflowing Mist, that target takes significantly less damage, or that target is receiving a high amount of healing throughput. For me, it's the best way to preserve mana. On top of that, it makes the target tanky, it makes you tankier, and there really isn't much of a better option for Mistweavers currently. And these traits simply drop from the basic Mythic 0. You can get lucky and do a Mythic Plus and it might drop in the cache, but I would go out of your way to do the Mythic 0s to try and farm this trait. It's the best trait by far. It's very noticeable when you're stacking 3 of these on your Mistweaver, and I know a lot of people have asked me, well, what if I have an Azurite piece that is like 385 or 370, but it doesn't have Overflowing Mist? I still think Overflowing Mist is that important that you should take it no matter what. Your best bet is to try and either get an upgraded one from a Mythic Plus cache, go out and do Old Deer on Heroic to try and find one, but overall, it's the best trait. Now, as far as the other traits go in the inner rings, the rest of them really don't matter. In my opinion, as a Mistweaver, your healing output is already super high, so just find things that are going to make you a little bit tankier. I have not been playing this specific tune too much, so you can see my neck level is a little bit low, but one of the better inner ring traits that you can get is something called Resounding Protection. It creates this shield on you every 30 seconds that absorbs 8,400 damage. 2 of the pieces that I have Resounding Protection, so I can stack 2 of these. So having 2 of these on you, on your Mistweaver, is going to make you much more tanky. It's like a Pride As effect once again. If you've played Legion, it was like that legendary that put that barrier on you. Having 2 of these on your Mistweaver is going to be great for you when you're getting stun locked down, when you're going with Wave the Crane. You don't really need all the other traits. Just try and farm, most importantly, Overflowing Mist, and then go for the traits that are going to give you haste or etc. different stats or make you a little bit more tanky, and then try and get to the inner ring for Resounding Protection. Now, before I end this video, I want to quickly go into our stat priority. Now, for PvE and raiding, I've been stacking crit, and that is the best stat, but I took that into arena, and then I started to mess around with haste as well. I was examining a lot of other Mistweavers, and I know Whoopi's going to laugh at me if he watches this video because he was giving me crap about not stacking haste for arena, but I found that crit for arena, your heals are already dealing they're so massive, like you can top somebody in 2 globals if you get the cast time off. That crit chance doesn't feel very helpful there, whereas haste just helps out in so many areas. It helps your GCD, so it reduces the GCD on a lot of your spells, making my Surging Mist just insane in terms of how many times I can cast it during my Soothing Mist, and it also increases my hot tick speed, so my hots tick much faster. Healing allows me to burst heal much more easily, and just making sure that I can top targets and my allies much more effectively. It also increases my attack speed during my Wave of the Crane. All things like that haste helps out with, and a lot of classes, because of the increase on our GCDs for Battle for Azeroth, a lot of classes have been seeking out haste. So for me, I feel like crit chance isn't very important there. A lot of your gear is going to be crit heavy just based on like the way the loot table works for Mistweavers, but if you can find haste and enchant your rings with haste, socket your gear with haste, it's going to be much more effective in terms of your ability to top people as a Mistweaver, to get more damage out during your Wave of the Crane, to allow you to cast faster, just press more abilities quicker. The more abilities you can press faster than your opponent, is generally going to be the way to go for Arena. So just keep that in mind. I also find it to be useful for Mythic Plus, but then again for raiding, I think crit's just more effective there because you can just top somebody and go on to the next person. So overall, I have been enjoying my Mistweaver quite a bit. I'm very happy to see that Resto Druids and Resto Shamans were recently nerfed to kind of even out the playing field. I was feeling a little bit bad about my class for a moment, but now that those classes got nerfed and everything seems to be balancing out, Mistweaver once again seems to be in a very good place, and it's a very fun healer to play. I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. I know it was a quick guide. If you're looking for a more in-depth guide, I might release one in the future after some more changes have gone through. I might also release a PvE guide, so if you're interested in that, be sure to give the video a thumbs up and let me know in the comment section below. But that's going to do for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, once again, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. If you have any more questions about my Mistweaver guide or anything in general, you can leave those in the comment section below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Don't forget to catch me on my Twitch live stream where I answer all of your guys' questions in depth. Do not forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.